Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Kick Off Your Damn Heels. I am Dr. Teralyn, and I am here with my colleague, Claire Ketchum. And so, Claire, can you please tell us about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, excited to be here. So, my story was that I gained some weight in college, and then after I was out of college a couple of years, I decided that I needed to lose weight, and I just sort of got stuck jumping from diet to diet, and nothing ever worked. And I got really, really frustrated because I just felt like I wasn't happy with where I was, but no diet was something that I could stick with. I just kept on having reasons why I would quit. And then I would just blame the diet versus, maybe me or what I was doing or how I was approaching it. And then I read the book Woman, Food, and God and by Janine Roth, which introduced the whole concept of mindful eating and not being on a diet anymore. And so that was sort of like this aha moment that I could eat really well and not be on a diet. And it was more about how I was approaching eating versus what I was eating was the more important piece. But I still struggled to even be consistent with being a mindful eater. So I still wasn't like fully just relaxed about it. And that's when I learned the emotional freedom technique. When I was at the Institute of Integrated Nutrition, I learned about that. I took a deep dive into it, learned all about it.
So hold on, we need to do a little education. So what is the emotional freedom technique in a nutshell, please?
So the emotional freedom technique is, it's a process where you tap on the meridian points. And so if you are, say, like really stressed out about something that's going on in your life, you can work through it but you tap on these meridian points while you're working through this stressor in your life. And so it doesn't increase your stress because you can't be in a relaxed state and a stress state at the same time. So because you're tapping on these points while you're working through a stressful situation, your body remains in a relaxed state, and that's what allows you to bring that stress down.
Okay, so for those of us who are listening on the podcast, because I do have videos of this too, could you tell them what a meridian point is?
Sure. A meridian point is they're energy points, and they're all over your body. So similar to acupuncture, where if you're having a specific problem, they will put the needle in different parts. So you can get very advanced. But what the founder, Gary Craig, who's the founder of EFT, discovered is that as long as you're sort of activating one of those pressure points or meridian points or whatever you want to call it, you're going to send a relaxation signal to your body. So yes, you can get more advanced, but it's more of a way to bring it to the masses, and so that people could do it on themselves versus having to know, I'm having this emotion that's located in this little spot on my foot or whatever. So it's a way to mainstream it, and so people can use it as a tool for themselves to reduce their stress. And so for me, that was sort of the key in being able to be more consistent with eating healthy on a regular basis.
Oh, nice. So we're going to be talking about something that you call the chronic stress loop.
Yes.
So let's talk about that and then tie it into the EFT emotional freedom work that you're doing as well. So tell me about this chronic stress loop.
So this is just a name that I've given to a pattern that is probably familiar to a lot of people that, or maybe it's not, maybe they don't notice it. So you have some sort of a stressor in your life. And then we have these thoughts in our heads like that, oh, I'm not good enough, or I never have enough time, or, all these sort of like negative little thoughts that pop in our head.
Yeah.
And that increases our stress even more. And then everybody has some sort of default habit that they go to reduce that stress. And for some people, it might be, gossiping or shopping. But for the people that I work with, it's eating. And typically, although some people overeat healthy food also because they're trying to be healthier, so they're overeating nuts. But still, they're not going to, if you're overeating nuts, you're not going to get to the weight that you want to be at. And so then eventually, if you have this pattern, so I had it my whole life, But it wasn't until I sort of hit my 20s that it really became a problem and I started to gain weight. I was my metabolism was like, revved up enough. I was doing sports. Like I was able to like make it through high school, even though I still had the pattern. It just was, I wasn't seeing the weight.
Well, and I would think that your pattern would be, the eating pattern would be the same, but maybe your activity level changes when you're not doing sports, anymore. So when your life changes, like those good patterns that you have may not be good anymore,
Right. And I do think as you get older, your body's less forgiving,
my body's really less forgiving.
It's kind of like, we let you get away with it when you were young, but like, you should know better by now. Like,
right, exactly.
And so then you see the weight start coming on, and then that increases your stress. Mm-hmm. So you go back to the top where you have the stress about now being overweight. And so people are trying to solve that stress, but maybe the underlying stress is that, they have a toddler and they're not sleeping at night, so they're exhausted. And that's the real stress, but they're trying to go on a diet to solve it. And so that just keeps them stuck in this loop. And they're trying to solve, they're trying to solve stressors all with diet, which isn't necessarily going to work.
I just want to comment on this a little bit. So, I'm a therapist by trade, and pretty much every time when people come in, we start talking about food and things like that for stress, the first thing they want to talk about is weight loss. Mm-hmm. And as if that's going to solve every problem that they have, it seems to emerge as like the number one thing. Well, if I could just lose weight, then all my problems would be solved, and I can go back and talk about like the diet culture with that, because they say that, you lose weight and you're sexier and you have a good sex drive and you have energy and you have all those things could be very true, but it's not, we're not using nutrition just for weight loss. You're using lifestyle and nutrition to help with the stress loop that you kind of caught yourself into, right?
Exactly. And so when I was able to keep my stress low, and for me, I use the emotional freedom technique to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's just what works for me. People can do lots of different habits besides, the emotional freedom technique to help. I just personally like that. For me, it works the best because it's active. So you're moving your hands through these points as you talk through this. You're really talking to yourself. You could do it with somebody else, but that's the beauty of it. You don't actually need another person to do it. So you could do it. And so to me, like if I just try to meditate, I would just be thinking about my grocery list. I never felt like I got anywhere with it. Whereas as I was tapping and I was moving, I was able to stay focused on what I was doing and stay focused on releasing that stressor versus thinking about my to-do list, which was obviously not going to help anything.
Well, you also with EFT, like giving your hands something to do, mm-hmm. if you're a picker or a doer or a fidgeter or whatever, this really helps because then you're actually doing something that enhances your emotional experiences versus, causes more stress. Like if you're a nail biter or, that type of thing. So it does give your hands something different to do, right?
Yes. Because nail biting is a big way that people relieve stress. Mm-hmm. I worked with a student who just would sit there and gnaw his fingers whenever he was so stressed out. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, don't do that. But I'm not a nail biter, so I can't relate to that. But I can relate to, I had a bad day. I'm going to buy a bag of gummy bears and I'm going to eat them till I feel sick.
Right.
And why? Why can't I eat a normal amount of gummy bears?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
Why am I eating gummy bears at all? They're really actually disgusting. But that was that really, really sweet sugar, pure sugar.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, it does relieve stress to eat sugar because it gives you a little bit of a boost and it makes you a little bit happier. Not a long term, because then you gain weight and you actually feel more tired after. But, for a little bit, you feel happy. So, it's a good strategy to technically.
There could be way worse ones, by the way, right? You know.
Well, I also think there's a little bit of that it's socially acceptable.
Oh, yeah, well.
To overeat, you know?
Well, because it's socially acceptable to eat, you know, whereas it's not always socially acceptable to like smoke cigarettes or, you know, have a joint, you know,
right. Or be $30,000 in debt. Like, you know, people who shop, like that's less socially acceptable. Whereas like, oh, I went to my mom's and we had cake and cheese and like, and no one's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? Like, I'm like, oh yeah, me too. You know, like
yeah, I love cake. It's so good. Yeah. I know. It's funny. It's funny. So can you walk me through kind of an experience of, with one of your clients? Like what would you do for them?
So what I would do with a client is, so I have a process that I developed called, it's called the Eating Well Blockers Assessment. So I would take them through that. And that would just sort of help me identify what areas of their life are causing them the biggest stress, so that, you know, so they know where to start and what to start working on. Because it depends, like what stresses you out, you know, is your schedule, then working on like finding space within your schedule is a strategy. If you have all the time in the world, then that's not a strategy. So it really depends on what your stressor is. And then some people like EFT and some people don't, but I personally love it. So I do. And, but not all my clients have in the past necessarily, but you don't need to love it to sort of find those habits to break that pattern.
Well, to me, it's one of these things like, one thing doesn't work for everybody, but some things are very much worth trying, you know? I mean, I did EFT too, and wasn't something that resonated with me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'll never, ever try it again.
Right.
You know? So, but I feel like experiences are important.
Yeah. And I do think like EFT can be really good to help you bring down a stress in the moment, or to help you keep your stress levels low. But sometimes it is sort of more of a lifestyle. I had one client who decided that what really stressed her out and drove her to the kitchen was when her house was a mess. She felt really out of control about it. And so she's like, every time I have the urge to go to the kitchen and eat, I'm going to set a timer and I'm going to clean my house. I'm going to pick up for 20 minutes instead of grabbing a bag of chips and sitting on my couch and watching TV, which makes me feel worse.
Exactly.
But for her, cleaning was actually what reduced her stress. Now, if I gave that as a list of suggestions of ways to reduce stress, people are like, I don't think the cleaning is on my list. Like, you know, like, that's not for everybody.
I don't have time for that. That makes me more stressed out.
That gives me anxiety. Like, it's me more stress and you tell me I need to clean. So it's really individualized.
Right.
How you're going to break that habit.
So do you have any strong words of wisdom that you could share as we wrap up this interview today?
I think my biggest takeaway would be that if you find yourself, you know, craving something or wanting something and you're not hungry, thinking, what happened right before this? What's going on in my life that might be pushing me towards this? And then working on that to help you avoid, to help you break out of that pattern. It's just really helping your, like, be aware of it is sort of the first step for sure.
And then doing something about it. Yeah. Well, and as you talked about, like, the majority of clients need to kind of figure out what they need to do, and you get to help them do that. Because if you were to, like you said, if you were to say, you know what, I think you need to clean your house, it'd be like, yeah, screw you.
Right. It's great. Because that's not,
really, that's what you've got, you know?
Exactly. And it also depends on your stage of life, where you are. And, you know, do you work full-time? Do you work part-time? Do you have kids? Don't have kids? Like, all of those things impact how, like, what you're actually able to do and what you're able to. So some things can be as little as a minute, but they can have a huge impact in stopping that pattern of eating to soothe the stress.
Right. Or eating or doing anything else that you shouldn't be doing, right?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be eating. That's just the focus on the clients I work with is, the struggle is with the eating. But yeah, it works for anything for sure.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, very nice. And so I think you're going to be writing a blog post for me too, right?
Yes.
All right, cool. So that'll be up on my website, and I'll have a link back to it on the show notes for this, and also Claire's social media handles, and all of her information will be located in the show notes as well. Anything else that you want to cover that we didn't touch on today, Claire?
I would just love to invite people to join my, I have a community called the Stress-Free Weight Loss Community. And we have little mini challenges every week that sort of all these little mini habits that help break this pattern. And we just do one a week. So it's just a great place to get support and sort of get started. And obviously, as we talked about, not every little mini challenge is going to make sense for you, but the ones that do, you can participate. So just an invitation if that sounds like something that would be helpful to the people listening.
Awesome. So we can also put that link in the show notes for them too.
Perfect. Great.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And if you love this episode, please leave us a favorable review and leave a comment below. Take care, everyone. Until next time.